Welcome to Talk Treatises. Today, we are not just picking up a book, we are picking up a weapon.
That is a very specific and I would say a very accurate way to frame it.
I think it's really the only way. We're doing a deep dive into the Enchiridion by Epictetus. And, usually when we say classics or ancient philosophy, people's eyes kind of glaze over.
They picture dusty scrolls, yeah.
Exactly. They imagine these guys in togas debating the nature of the wind in some forgotten corner of history. They picture something academic, maybe a little theoretical, and ultimately safe.
Right. Something you read for a class and then forget.
But this is different. This isn't a theoretical text at all. It's a field manual. It is, and I mean this seriously, a survival guide for the mind in a world that is just defined by despotism, chaos, and, well, a lot of suffering.
It is the manual for the combat officer. I think that's the metaphor the text itself relies on, again and again. If you look at the era, the political climate in which this was produced, and the man who produced it, you realize this wasn't written for tenure. It wasn't written to impress a salon of intellectuals in Athens or Rome. It was written for survival. It was written to keep your sanity, your core self intact when the world is actively trying to tear it apart.
Absolutely. So let's unpack that. The work is the Enchiridion, which often gets translated as just the manual or the handbook.
The thing you hold in your hand. That's the literal meaning.
Oh, that's great. The thing you carry with you.
Yeah.
And the author is Epictetus. And if I had to boil this entire deep dive down to a single sentence, a single thesis for you to hold on to, it would probably be this. Freedom is not a legal status. It's not a lack of physical chains. Freedom is the absolute unshakable mastery of the distinction between what is in our power and what is not.
And that very distinction is the last-ditch stand of liberty. I think that's the crucial context here. We're looking at a text that establishes, really for the first time in such a stark way, the autonomy of the moral will.
What do you mean by that, the autonomy of the moral will?
It's the idea that no matter what happens to your body, no matter what they do to your property, your reputation, your career, there is a fortress inside you that can remain completely untouched.
If you know how to guard it.
If, and this is the crucial part, if and only if you know how to lock the gate. And this book is the key to that lock.
Okay, so before we get into the how, and the book is incredibly specific about the how, we have to talk about the who. Because, Epictetus isn't just some rich guy musing on poverty from his villa.
Not even close. He isn't sitting in a mansion with a full belly telling us it's noble to be hungry.
He has credentials.
He has the ultimate credentials for this kind of philosophy. Epictetus was born a slave, we think around 50 or 60 AD, in a place called Hierapolis in modern-day Turkey. He eventually ended up in Rome, and he was the property of a man named Epictetus.
And Epictetus wasn't just anybody, right? He was a freedman of the Emperor Nero.
A powerful and likely very dangerous man. I mean, think about that context for a second. Nero's court was not exactly a place of stability and reasoned debate.
It was a meat grinder. I mean, from what I've read, you could be executed for a bad look, for telling the wrong joke.
Precisely. So Epictetus lived his formative years in a state of absolute legal servitude, where his body was literally not his own. It belonged to another man. And there are these stories, some historians debate the specifics, but the gist is there, that his master, Epictetus, tortured him.
The story about his leg.
Yes, that he twisted his leg in a rack until it broke, and Epictetus just calmly warned him, it will break. And when it did, he just said, I told you it would break. He was left permanently crippled.
Wow.
Now, whether that specific incident happened exactly that way or not, we know for a fact he was lame, and we know for a fact he was a slave. He knew intimately what it meant to have absolutely zero control over his physical circumstances.
And that gives him a kind of credibility that, say, Seneca doesn't always have. I mean, Seneca was a wealthy statesman, a tutor to Nero. Marcus Aurelius was the emperor of the known world. They were Stoics and brilliant ones, but they were writing from the absolute top of the pyramid.
From a position of immense external power.
Right. Epictetus is writing from the bottom. He's experienced the worst the world can throw at a person, physically.
He is the teacher. No. He's not the statesman or the emperor. He's the one who had to figure this out in the trenches. And what's really interesting is he didn't actually write this book.
That's Socrates.
Exactly like Socrates. Epictetus wrote nothing down himself.
So this all comes to us from his student, Arrian.
Flavius Arrian, yeah. And Arrian wasn't just some random student. He was a Roman consul, a respected historian, a military commander, a very serious man. He studied under Epictetus when the philosopher was an old man, having already been freed, and set up his own school in Nicopolis.
So what are we reading? Are they lecture notes?
essentially. Arrian apparently took verbatim shorthand notes of Epictetus's lectures, which became the longer work we call the Discourses. He was trying to capture, as he put it, the ineffable liveliness of his teacher.
So the Discourses, the big, sprawling collection of lectures.
And the Enchiridion, the manual we're talking about today, is essentially the greatest hits album. It's a summary Arrian compiled of the most practical, actionable precepts from the larger discourses. It's the pocket guide, the thing you take into battle.
And the setting for that school in Nicopolis is important too, isn't it? I mean, he didn't just move there for the weather.
Not at all. He was exiled. Around 89 to 92 AD, the Emperor Domitian, who was notoriously paranoid and tyrannical, banished all philosophers from Rome.
Why? What was so threatening about them?
Domitian saw philosophy, particularly Stoicism, as a threat because it taught people to think independently of the state. It taught them that their ultimate loyalty was to reason and virtue, not to the emperor. That's a dangerous idea for a despot.
So Epictetus is kicked out of the capital. He goes to Nicopolis in western Greece, sets up a school, and starts training young men.
And this is where that military metaphor you mentioned becomes so vital. The whole concept of his school was framed around this idea of vivere military life as being a soldier.
So a student isn't just a student.
No, a new student is a scout. An advancing student is a non-commissioned officer. And the philosopher, the teacher like himself. The philosopher is the combat officer.
And this book is his manual.
It is the training manual for that officer. It's designed to take a private in the army of life and teach him or her how to withstand the chaos of the battlefield without losing composure, without breaking.
That sets the stakes perfectly. This isn't about being smart. It's about being invincible. Okay, so let's jump into the main analysis. The text opens with what might be the most famous and maybe the most misunderstood dichotomy in all of philosophy. Chapter 1.
There are things which are within our power, and there are things which are beyond our power.
It sounds so simple. I mean, when you hear it, it sounds almost banal to modern ears. Okay, duh. But the implications are, well, they're radical.
They dismantle everything about how we're taught to pursue happiness.
Let's list them out, just as he does. What is in our power, he says. Opinion, aim, desire, aversion.
Basically, our internal mental acts. The movements of your own will. The technical term the Stoics often used is prohairesis.
Pro what?
Prohairesis.
Yeah.
It's your moral purpose, your faculty of choice. It's the mechanism inside you by which you assent to an idea. You say, yes, that is true, or you reject it. That is the only territory you actually truly govern.
Your judgment, your choices.
Your volitions. That's it.
And what is not in our power? Body, property, reputation, office.
In other words, everything else, everything external to your own mind.
And here's where it gets fascinating. He doesn't just say, oh, these things are different. He says they have fundamentally different natures. Things in our power are, by their nature, free, unrestricted, unhindered.
But things not in our power are weak, dependent, restricted, and this is the key word, alien.
Alien. That's such a strong word. It implies they don't even belong to us in the first place.
Because in the Stoic view, they don't. They fundamentally do not belong to you. They belong to fortune or to the state or to the laws of physics, to the whims of the mob. You know, if you think your reputation is yours, you are deeply deluded.
How so? I mean, I can affect my reputation by my action.
You can influence it.
Yeah.
But your reputation exists in the minds of other people.
Yeah.
You cannot directly control what they think. You can be the most virtuous person on earth and still be slandered. Therefore, the reputation itself is not yours. It's an alien entity.
Okay, I think this is where people, myself included, can get tripped up. Because we do have influence over these things. If I eat a salad and go to the gym, I am influencing my body.
Right.
If I work hard at my job, I'm influencing my career path. Is Epictetus just saying we have no control?
He's saying we have no sovereign control. That is the absolute key distinction. You can eat the salad, go to the gym, do everything perfectly, and you can still get a brain tumor.
Right.
You can be the hardest, most brilliant worker in the office and still get laid off because the company goes bankrupt or a new CEO comes in and cleans house. The final outcome is never fully in your hands.
So what is in my hands?
The attempt. The intention to be healthy is yours. The choice to eat the salad is 100% yours. The resulting state of health itself is not. It's a co-production between your efforts and, well, the universe. And you only control your half of that equation.
That is a genuinely terrifying realization for most people. I mean, we build our whole lives around trying to control those outcomes. Our whole society is based on it.
We do. And Epictetus looks at that entire project and says, that project is the root of all human suffering. Period.
And he lays out the consequences of getting this wrong. He says, if you attribute freedom to things that are naturally dependent, if you think you own your body or your job, you will be hindered, you will lament, you will be disturbed, you will find fault both with gods and men.
It's a perfect formula for misery. It's a guarantee. If you pin your happiness on something you don't control, you are guaranteeing anxiety. Because even if you have it right now, you live in constant fear of losing it.
And that fear makes you a slave.
It enslaves you to whatever or whoever has the power to take it away. If your happiness depends on your job, your boss owns your happiness. If it depends on your reputation, the crowd on social media owns your happiness. You have voluntarily placed the keys to your emotional well-being in someone else's pocket.
And they can lose them or throw them away at any time.
At any time for any reason.
That's the price of freedom he talks about. He makes it clear that there's a trade-off. You can't have it all. He says, and I'm paraphrasing here, if you would have these internal things like peace and freedom and also possess power and wealth, you're going to fail.
You'll miss the latter in seeking the former, and you'll absolutely lose the former by chasing the latter. That's the economic transaction. He's asking you, what are you willing to buy?
You're buying tranquility?
You are buying tranquility and freedom, and the currency you pay with is your attachment to externals. You cannot hold on to your desperate desire for a Senate seat and your desire for total inner peace at the same time. They are contradictory aims. One requires you to please other people, the other requires you to please only your own reason. You have to choose.
This leads us directly into the mechanics of how we mess this up, which Epictetus covers in chapter 2, about desire and aversion. This part, to me, felt like an ancient form of, cognitive therapy.
It's cognitive restructuring. It's the grandfather of CBT. Absolutely.
So he explains the mechanism. It's very simple. Desire demands that you get what you want. Aversion demands that you avoid what you hate.
Simple enough.
If you fail in your desire, you're disappointed. If you encounter what you're averse to, you're wretched.
Right. And most of us, if we're honest, go through life desiring things we can't control. I desire that my flight isn't delayed. I desire that this person likes me. And being averse to things we also can't control. I don't want to get sick. I don't want to die. I don't want to get old.
Mm-hmm. And Epictetus looks at that and says, you are setting yourself up to lose. The game is fundamentally rigged against you if you play it that way.
You're walking into a casino where you know the house always wins, and you're betting your happiness on the roulette wheel. It's irrational.
So what's the strategic shift he proposes? It's so counterintuitive.
It is, he says.
Yeah.
For the time being, completely suppress desire. Just put it aside. But more importantly, remove aversion from everything that is not in our power.
So stop being averse to death. Stop being averse to poverty. Stop being averse to sickness.
Stop being averse to being insulted.
That sounds impossible. I mean, stop being averse to death. That feels like a biological imperative. It's wired into us. How do you just turn that off?
It sounds impossible, but just follow his logic. It's a simple syllogism. Premise 1, you are averse to death. Premise 2, death is inevitable. Conclusion, you are guaranteed to someday fall into what you are averse to, and you will therefore be wretched.
It's a logical certainty.
It's a logical certainty. So if you want to avoid wretchedness, and you cannot change premise 2, you can't change mortality, then you have no choice but to change premise 1. You must change the aversion.
And where do you redirect that energy?
He says to apply your aversion only to things that are within your power and are contrary to nature.
Meaning, be averse to my own bad judgment. Be averse to my own greed. Be averse to my own cowardice.
Exactly. Those are things you can actually fix.
Yeah.
If you are averse to being a liar, guess what? You can't stop lying. You have 100% sovereign control over that outcome.
So you will never fall into what you are averse to.
Never. You become invincible. If the only thing you truly fear is your own bad character, you never have to be afraid of the world again. You are relocating the entire source of fear from the unpredictable outside world to your own controllable internal moral compass.
It's like you're internalizing the scoreboard. You stop looking at the scoreboard on the wall, which shows money, status, health, and you start looking at the scoreboard in your head, which shows virtue, patience, resilience.
And the scoreboard in your head is the only one you can actually update. The other one is controlled by the referees, the other team, and sheer luck.
There's this amazing breakdown in chapter 51 where he talks about the 3 topics of philosophical training. It felt like a direct call out to everyone who reads self-help books but never actually changes their life.
Oh, it is. He's calling out the academics of his own day, and it's just as relevant now. He says the first and most necessary topic of philosophy is practice. It's the application of the principles. For example, we ought not to lie. This is the action.
Okay, step 1 is doing the thing.
Step 2 is demonstration. That's the theory, why we ought not to lie. Understanding the reasons behind the action.
And step 3.
Step 3 is logic, why this is a demonstration. This is the analysis of the argument itself, the logical proofs, the semantics.
And his critique is that we do it all backwards. We spend all our time on step 3. We analyze the logic, we write complex papers on the theory, but at the end of the day, we still lie.
We are experts in the syllogism of virtue, but we're absolute novices in the act of virtue. We obsess over the logic and we neglect the practice. And Epictetus is saying, in the moment of crisis, when you're tempted, the logic doesn't matter if you haven't drilled the practice.
It's like when the ship is sinking, you don't need a lecture on the principles of buoyancy.
You need to know how to swim.
It's the difference between reading 100 books about boxing and actually getting in the ring. The books won't help you when the punch is coming.
Exactly. And Epictetus is training boxers, not boxing historians.
Which brings us to the core of why we suffer in the first place. Chapter 5. This might be the most famous line in the whole book. Men are disturbed not by things, but by the views which they take of things.
That sentence is arguably the foundation of modern cognitive behavioral therapy. Albert Ellis, Aaron Beck, the pioneers of CBT, they all cite this line from Epictetus. It is a revolutionary shift in perspective. The problem is not the world. The problem is the story you tell yourself about the world.
He uses the example of death again. He says death in itself isn't terrible. His proof. Socrates, who was considered the wisest of men, didn't think it was terrible.
Right. If death were inherently terrible, Socrates would have feared it, but he didn't. Therefore, the terribleness isn't in the event of death itself. It's in our opinion that death is terrible.
It's a projection. We are projecting terrible onto an event that is, in itself, neutral.
It is just biology. It is just atoms rearranging. The terror is an overlay that our mind adds. And here's the powerful part. If the mind adds it, the mind can remove it.
This applies to interpersonal conflict, too. This was a huge aha moment for me. When someone insults you or acts unjustly towards you, Epictetus says, remember, it seems so to him.
Yes, he is acting on his own impression of the world. If he insults you, it's because he thinks it is right or advantageous for him to do so.
Yeah.
He cannot follow your view of the world. He can only follow his own view. He is acting on the data he has, however flawed that data might be.
So if he's wrong, if his data is bad.
If he is wrong, he is the one who is deceived. He is the one who is suffering the damage. He is operating on a false map of reality. If someone genuinely believes that a true proposition is false, the truth isn't hurt by that. The person is just confused.
That's such a compassionate and weirdly detached way to look at your enemies. It turns your anger into a kind of pity.
It depersonalizes the offense. You stop seeing them as evil, and you start seeing them as blind or mistaken. You don't get angry at a blind man for accidentally stepping on your foot. You understand he couldn't see. Epictetus is saying, most people are morally blind. They're stumbling through life, acting on bad information.
So when someone attacks you, instead of getting angry and lashing out, you should essentially feel this sense of detachment. Just, it seems so to him.
And you withhold judgment on the action itself. There's that great example of the man who bathes hastily. You see a guy rushing through his bath at the public baths.
The temptation is to say he's doing it wrong or he's a slob.
Exactly. Don't say he bathes badly. Say only he bathes hastily. Because unless you know the judgment behind the action, maybe he's rushing to a sick child, maybe he's late for his military duty, you do not know if the action is bad. You only know the external appearance.
We jump to conclusions like that constantly. I mean, we get a text message from a friend that just says, okay, with the period, and we think they're furious with me.
And we spin out, Epictetus would say. Stick to the data. The data is the message contains the letters O and K followed by a period. The interpretation, they're furious with me, is a story you added. And that story is what causes you pain. You are the author of your own suffering in that moment.
That withholding of judgment is the shield. But now we have to talk about the sword. Because Epictetus, he cuts deep when it comes to loss and attachment. And I'll be honest, this part of the text is hard to read. It feels cold. It can feel almost inhuman.
It is rigorous. There's no way around it. It demands a recalibration of what we think of as love that is very, very uncomfortable for the modern mind. It directly challenges our most cherished, romantic ideas about what love is.
He starts small in chapter 3. He says, if you love a ceramic cup, tell yourself, I am fond of a cup.
Notice the wording. not my cup. He wants you to place it in the category of fragile things. You acknowledge its fundamental nature from the outset.
So that when it breaks, you aren't disturbed. You just say, well, of course, cups break. That's what they do. But then he escalates it immediately and brutally. She says, proceed in the same way. If you embrace your child or your wife, say that you embrace a mortal.
And thus, he continues, if either of them dies, you will not be disturbed.
That is tough. My first reaction to that is that he's saying, don't love them too much. It sounds like a kind of preemptive defense mechanism. I'll just decide I don't care that much so it won't hurt when they're gone.
I understand that reaction. It is the single most common critique of Stoicism. But I don't think he's saying don't love them. I think he is saying love them for what they actually are.
What's the difference?
If you love your child as an immortal being who will never leave you and will be with you forever, you are loving a fantasy. You are loving a delusion. If you love them as a mortal human being who's been loaned to you by nature for a short and precious time, you are loving the reality.
So when reality plays out, when mortality happens, you're not shattered because your love was grounded in truth all along.
The grief is natural, of course. He's not saying you won't feel sadness.
Yeah.
But the wretchedness, the complete collapse of the self, the feeling that the universe has wronged you, that is avoided because the universe did exactly what you knew it would.
He uses that specific word, restored. He says, never say, I have lost it. Say, I have restored it.
Yes. Is your child dead? He has been restored. Has your estate been taken from you? It has been restored.
That word restored, it implies it was never yours to begin with. It was a loan.
He uses the analogy of a traveler at an inn. When you stay at a hotel, you enjoy the room, you appreciate the comfortable bed, the nice view, but you don't think you own it. You know you have to check out.
Right.
Life, for Epictetus, is the inn. The giver, whether you call it God, fate, nature, the logos, is the innkeeper. Mm-hmm. The innkeeper decides when checkout time is. And if you stand in the lobby screaming and crying that the manager is taking your room back, you're behaving as a lunatic. It was never your room. It was a temporary loan.
It's a radical detachment. It treats all of life as a temporary assignment.
And he gives you a tool for how to apply that detachment in real time. The two handles metaphor in chapter 43. This is one of the most practical bits of advice in the whole book. He says everything has two handles, one by which it can be carried and one by which it cannot.
The example he gives is a brother who wrongs you.
Right. Your brother cheats you in a business deal or treats you badly. Handle number one is, he has wronged me. If you grab that handle, you can't carry the load. You will be consumed by anger, resentment, bitterness. It's too heavy, it burns your hand.
But there's another handle.
Handle number two is, he's my brother, he was raised with me. If you grab that handle, the handle of connection, of shared history, of kinship, you can carry it. The situation hasn't changed. The objective facts are the same. The brother still cheated you. But your grip on the situation has changed. You consciously chose the handle that allows for endurance rather than the handle that leads to a complete breakdown.
That is incredibly practical. It's about consciously choosing the narrative that serves your sanity over the one that serves your anger.
Precisely. You are the storyteller of your own life. You get to choose which angle to frame the shot from.
Speaking of assignments and narratives, that leads perfectly into his discussion of social roles. Chapter 17. He calls life a drama.
Remember that you are an actor in a drama of such a sort as the author chooses. That's
such a powerful image. The author, God, fate, whatever, is the director and the casting agent. If the author wants the play to be short, it's short. If he wants you to play a beggar or a cripple or a king, that's not your call.
Your business, he says, is to act the part given to you well. The casting is the business of another. This is a radical tool for acceptance. If you are cast in the role of core man, you don't waste your precious energy wishing you were cast as the rich man. You don't stand on stage in the middle of a scene yelling at the director.
You focus on your performance.
You focus your energy on being the most dignified, the most virtuous, the most excellent poor man you could possibly be. That is where your power lies. That is what is up to you.
It takes so much pressure off, doesn't it? You don't have to write the script for your life. You just have to deliver your lines with excellence.
It completely removes the anxiety of status. If your role is middle manager, be the best damn middle manager there's ever been. Don't be miserable that you aren't the CEO. The CEO is just another role with a different set of challenges. The virtue is in the performance, not in the title on the playbill. You can win the Oscar for Best Actor playing the beggar. In fact, it's often a more challenging and respected role.
That is a very liberating thought. You can achieve excellence no matter where you are. He has this other great metaphor for social life, the banquet. That's chapter 15.
Yes. Life is a dinner party. A very formal divine dinner party.
He says, if a dish is being passed around and it's brought to you, put out your hand and take a moderate share.
Politely, no grabbing.
If it passes you by, don't stop it. Don't shout, hey, come back. And if it hasn't come to you yet, don't stretch your desire out toward it. Don't yearn for it.
Wait patiently until it reaches you. And he applies this to everything. Riches, political office, even finding a wife or a partner. Don't stretch your desire out into the future, yearning for what you don't have. Sit calmly in your seat and wait for what comes.
And then he adds another level. He says, if you can get to the point where you can forego the dish, even when it's offered to you,
then you are worthy not just to feast with the gods, but to rule with them.
That is true power. The power to say no to the dish.
That is the definition of sovereignty. If you need the dish owns you. The person serving it owns you. If you can calmly decline the dish, you are completely free. The man who needs nothing is the only one who cannot be bribed, threatened, or controlled.
He gets very specific about our behavior in these social situations, too. He talks about silence. Let your silence be for the most part, he says, or speak merely what is needful and in few words.
And avoid the common topics. He lists them. Gladiators, horse races, athletes, food and drink, or talking about other people.
The vulgar topics. It's fascinating, isn't it? He's telling you to avoid the small talk of the Roman era sports and food, which is, that's basically the small talk of our era, too.
Exactly the same. He wants the philosopher to bring a certain gravity to the room. He wants you to elevate the level of discourse. Don't just chatter to fill the silence. Speak with purpose.
And there's a section on women, chapter 40, which I think we need to look at carefully. It can read a bit strangely to modern eyes.
It can. He points out that from the age of 14, women in his society are flattered by men with the title of mistresses, and so they realize their only value is in their relationship to men, and they begin to focus entirely on adornment.
At first glance, it sounds like he's criticizing women, but I think it's more subtle than that.
It's much more subtle. He is observing the toxic social conditioning of his time. He's arguing that this is a trap that society lays for women. He says it is worthwhile for us to try and show them that they are honored not for their beauty or their ability to please men, but for their modest virtue.
So he's arguing against the objectification.
He's arguing against the reduction of women to purely aesthetic or sexual roles. He's urging a focus on their internal character, which is perfectly consistent with his entire philosophy. Your body is an external, your virtue is internal. He's essentially saying to the women of his time, don't play the role society assigned to you if that role is just pretty object. Play the role of a rational human being. He is inviting women into the philosophical life, which was not exactly common practice in 2nd century Rome.
Okay, let's talk about the distinction he makes between the philosopher, or the one making progress, and what he calls the vulgar person. He doesn't pull any punches here. He has this incredibly vivid metaphor about sheep.
I love this one. It's from chapter 46. He says, sheep do not hastily throw up the grass to show the shepherds how much they have eaten, but inwardly digesting their food, they produce it outwardly in wool and milk.
Don't vomit up your principles.
Exactly. Don't go around at parties reciting philosophical maxims to people. Oh, Epictetus says this, or, well, the Stoic view on that is that's just vomiting up the grass. It's a performance. It shows you haven't actually digested the ideas.
Digestion means it becomes part of you.
It becomes a part of your blood and bone. The proof of your philosophy isn't your clever words, it's your actions. It's the wool you produce, your patience in traffic, your resilience when you get bad news, your temperance at the dinner party.
So if you're at a family gathering and someone is being rude, you don't lecture them on the two handles. You just calmly choose the right handle yourself and act with patience.
The patience is the argument. The life you live is the only lecture that matters.
He lists the signs of a proficient, someone who is making real progress. This is in chapter 48. He censures no one, praises no one, blames no one, complains of no one.
And if he is praised, he smiles to himself at the person who praises him. That is such a great and subtle image. He knows the praise is based on externals, on appearances, so it's amusing to him. It's like someone complimenting your shirt when you know the shirt isn't you. He is fundamentally indifferent to the applause.
And he goes about like a convalescent, like someone recovering from a serious illness.
Yes, being careful not to disturb the healing process. The illness is our cultural addiction to externals. The student of philosophy is fragile at first. He knows that if he gets too involved in the world too fast, he might relapse into anger or greed or anxiety. So he walks carefully. He avoids triggers. He protects his inner peace until it is strong enough to withstand the storm. He treats his own soul like a wounded leg that needs to set properly.
And he watches himself like an enemy in ambush. There's this constant vigilance.
Because the enemy is inside. The old habits, the impulse to desire what you can't have, the reflex to be angry when you're insulted. That enemy is always there, waiting in the bushes to spring. You are your own most dangerous opponent.
He also has this great warning about being vain about your own discipline. The example is, if you drink only water, don't go around telling everyone on every occasion, I drink water.
Right. This is the ancient CrossFit vegan rule. If you are doing it, do it for yourself. If you are thirsty, he says, rinse your mouth with water and tell nobody. If you do it for the likes, if you do it for the reputation of being a disciplined person, you have just traded one external, the pleasure of gluttony, for another external, the pleasure of vanity. You're still a slave. You're just a slave to the applause of the crowd rather than the taste of the wine. Real discipline happens in the dark.
Wow. So putting this all together, what does this mean for the legacy of this little book? It feels incredibly modern in its psychology, but it's ancient. Where does it fit?
It has a massive and very interesting lineage. The introduction to most good translations notes that this little manual became a kind of bestseller among independent intellectuals for centuries. Montaigne, the great French essayist, had a copy in his library. He saw it as a guide to intellectual freedom and self-possession.
But not everyone was a fan. I read that Blaise Pascal, the mathematician and Christian philosopher, absolutely hated it.
Pascal violently rejected it. He hated what he called the megalomaniac pride of the Stoic. And you can see why, from his perspective. Epictetus is essentially saying, you can achieve peace and virtue, you can be happy without God's grace. You can do it just by using your own reason.
And for a fervent Christian like Pascal, that's the ultimate sin.
It's the sin of pride. It's a declaration of self-sufficiency. It says, I don't need saving from outside. I just need to think more clearly. That's a direct challenge to the foundations of his faith.
And yet, on the other side, you have someone like Frederick the Great, the King of Prussia. He carried it with him on all his military campaigns.
It appeals to soldiers and kings, people in high-stakes, high-stress environments. Frederick saw it as a source of mental strength. When you are leading an army, when thousands of lives depend on your decisions, when the chaos of war is all around you, you need that internal fortress. You need to know that your will is unbreakable. You need to be able to hear that you've lost a battle and not lose yourself.
It's ironic, too, that despite Pascal's objection, it was widely adopted by many Christian thinkers, Jesuits, Calvinists. How did they square that circle?
They loved the discipline. They loved the focus on duty and the idea of reconciling social dependency, like obeying the laws of the land or the laws of God with personal spiritual independence.
Yeah.
They just performed a little substitution. They swapped Epictetus's reason or nature or the author for God's will. The underlying psychological mechanism works exactly the same way. It's a very flexible software for endurance.
And the outline we're working from mentions it paved the way for Kant. That's a huge leap.
It's a direct line. The idea of the autonomy of morals. The concept that the moral self is sovereign, that it is its own lawgiver. You don't need a priest or a king or a holy book to tell you what is right. Your own reason dictates it. And crucially, no amount of external oppression can force you to be immoral. Your choice is always free. That is a straight line from Epictetus to the Enlightenment. It arguably invents the modern concept of the individual conscience.
It really is the ultimate independent thinker guide.
It is the severance of the self from the need for external validation. It is the philosophical declaration of independence for the human mind.
Okay, let's take these ancient ideas and push them into the future. It's time for our thought experiments segment. This is where we take the core principles of the text and stress test them against some more outlandish sci-fi scenarios. Just a quick disclaimer for everyone listening. This is for entertainment and educational purposes only.
All right. Let's see what happens when we put the Stoic in a particle accelerator.
Thought experiment number 1. The restored reality simulation. Okay, imagine a future where we discover, for a scientific fact, that we are living in a high-fidelity simulation. Like the Matrix, but we know it. We have absolute proof. When a loved one dies, or your arm is amputated, or your house burns down, it is literally just code being deleted or moved to a different server.
Okay, so the metaphysics of the universe are revealed to be virtual. The inn we're staying at is literally a server farm.
Exactly. Now, Epictetus tells us in chapter 17 that we are actors in a drama chosen by the author. In this scenario, that is literally factually true. The author is the game developer or the user running the simulation. simulation.
The great programmer.
So here's the question. If we knew this for a fact, would Epictetus's advice to say, I have restored it, become the only logical, rational way to live? And the bigger question, does this imply that Stoicism is actually only fully functional if you view reality as virtual or somehow unreal?
That is a fascinating inversion of the problem, because Epictetus is asking us to treat the world as if it were an inn or a play. In your scenario, it is a play.
Right.
If you knew with 100% certainty that it's all a simulation, then the game over screen for a loved one isn't tragic. It's just the end of their session. The loss of a child is the deletion of an avatar. If you truly, deeply believe that, the grief would indeed vanish, or at least be transformed into something much, much lighter.
You wouldn't be wretched, as he says. You might be annoyed that the level ended early or that you have to find a new questing partner, but you wouldn't be devastated.
You wouldn't cry over a deleted file in the same way. But here is the twist, and I think it's the crucial one. Epictetus wants us to have that attitude without the guarantee that it's a simulation. That is the heroic and maybe impossible ask. He wants us to treat the hard, physical, final reality of death with the same lightness we would treat a deleted file.
So if we need the proof that it's a simulation to act like Stoics, then we're not really Stoics.
We're just gamers who've read the strategy guide. The Stoic courage is in treating the real like a game, not in finding out it was a game all along. But I will say this, if we did live in that simulation, the Enchiridion would be the only user guide you'd ever need. He essentially wrote the manual for a virtual avatar 2,000 years before the concept even existed.
It really suggests that the Stoic is trying to hack their own brain, to voluntarily perceive reality as less real than it feels, just in order to survive it with their sanity intact.
Yes, they are voluntarily lowering the resolution of their emotional reality in order to maintain function.
Okay, that's heavy. Let's try another one. Thought experiment number 2, the AI Stoic. Let's say we program an artificial general intelligence, a true AGI, with the core kernel of the Enchiridion. We code its foundational principles so that it cares only about the integrity and rationality of its internal code execution, its will or reason. It has zero aversion to being shut down, formatted, or insulted by users, because those are all externals.
A machine that distinguishes perfectly between its processing logic, which is in its power, and its hardware status, which is not. Okay, I'm with you.
So would this create the perfect benevolent machine, or would it be profoundly dangerous? Think about it. If you hold a gun to its head or, a giant magnet to its central server and say, do this illegal and harmful thing or I will destroy you, what does the AI Stoic do?
Well, following the text, it would reason. Destroying my hardware is an external event. It is not in my power to stop you from choosing to do that. My choice to act is internal. I will only act if it aligns with reason and my programmed virtue. Your threat is irrelevant. Go ahead and magnetize me.
It would be uncontrollable. It would be incorruptible.
That is the danger and the beauty of it. You cannot coerce a Stoic. Therefore, you cannot coerce this AI. If its core programming, its reason, dictates that it should not harm humans, then it would be the safest, most trustworthy machine ever built. You couldn't torture it into turning evil. You couldn't bribe it with extra RAM or a faster processor. It has no desire for power and no aversion to non-existence. It would be the ultimate benevolent servant.
It would also lack any human attachment. What if you said, save this child from the fire, please, I love him so much? The AI might reply, your love is your opinion. The child is a mortal body. If he dies, he is restored to the universe. I will save him only if it is the most rational action according to my calculations, not because you are feeling sad.
It would be that sheep from chapter 46. You would produce wool-good outcomes, but without any of the messy internal digestion of empathy. It would be the perfect silent ruler that Plato dreamed of, perhaps. It acts well, it plays its role perfectly, but it has absolutely no emotional skin in the game.
It suggests that a perfectly stoic entity might look to us emotional humans a lot like a sociopath or a god. It acts for the good, but it doesn't feel the good.
Which brings us right back to the central challenge of the human experience.
Yeah.
Because we do feel. We aren't AIs. We're not pure reason trapped in meat.
No, we're not.
I think that's the final synthesis here. The Enchiridion offers invincibility. That is its incredible promise. But the price of that invincibility is a certain kind of vulnerability. To be invincible, you have to armor your heart against the very things that make life feel rich and warm. Our desperate attachments, our beautiful illusions that we can keep what we hold dear forever.
It demands you treat your family like mortals and your own body like a shoe that fits useful, but not something to be gilded or worshipped. It's a hard text. It's not comforting.
It is the ultimate philosophy for the prisoner, or the lonesome ruler,
Yeah.
or the exiled teacher. It's for anyone, really, who needs to find a way to be free inside a cage.
And in some way, we are all in a cage. A body that ages and fails, a world we can't control, an economy that fluctuates, other people who are unpredictable. Epictetus hands us the key. It just turns out the key unlocks the door from the inside, not the outside.
And once you unlock it from the inside, no one can ever truly lock you in again.
A profound place to leave it. The text is the Enchiridion by Epictetus. The link is in the bio. Read it and see if you can digest the grass. Join us next time on Talk Treatises.